It's 7 o'clock. It's time to start the meeting, but I need one more board member to have a quorum. So hopefully Bennett or Laura is on their way. She's here. Come on up here, Ron, so we can start the meeting. Line through. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and so I can see something that Bennett's not going to be here. I know that Reggie.
He's not?
I saw an email that was forwarded. He didn't tell me that, but I saw an email.
I didn't hear from him.
Okay.
Okay, so I am going to call to order. Okay. Shh. I'm going to call to order the October 17th meeting of the Woodstock Town Board. We have one sole purpose tonight. We're here to talk about, to hold a public hearing on the zoning amendments and the subdivision amendments, chapter 260 and chapter 202. Before we get started with the public hearing, I know this is a little tight, but we Woodstockers are all so close and get along so well that I don't think folks would mind the cramped quarters. The other reason is that we can do Zoom here. And if you look, we've got several pages of folks online watching the meeting at home. So it was a balance between being a little crowded or moving over to the community center and not having the Zooming capability. I just want to kick off this meeting by saying this has been a long process. We started back in July of 2021 when a committee was put together made up of a 30-some-odd year policy professional with specialty in housing and environment. We had the chair of the comprehensive plan, a plan that was adopted. Our last plan was 56 years ago. A member of the zoning board of appeals, a member of our planning board, two members of our town board, and one of them was a town historian. So it was a very talented group of people who have worked tirelessly to put together a document. This whole concept was born out of the comprehensive plan, which presented a number of things. The comprehensive plan was the roadmap for the town, for the community for the next 10 years. And the two top items coming out of the comprehensive plan were a need for affordable housing and a need to protect even more our environment. And those were the two goals. And in some ways, some people could say, well, they can be very conflicting. But that was the task that I asked this group to perform. And I think that they've worked extremely diligently on putting that together. In May 31st of 2022, they produced the first version, which was presented to the public. They then took it back. They took a lot of comments and feedback from various groups. Version 2 was put out this spring, April 18th, 2023. And again, it made the rounds, and there was a lot of public input at meetings, online. And version 3, what we felt was a document ready to start to discuss in a public hearing form, was this October 3rd, 2023. Along the way, they've met with official town committees and boards over 20 times in this process. They've also had over 20 open meetings with various constituency groups, the Land Conservancy, employees, new residents, old residents, young people, police officers, town employees, and got input from all these folks as well. So with that, I'm just going to lay out the rules for what we do with the public hearing. And I just want to say that in my time as supervisor, I have been very fortunate at least 4 or 5 times during after public hearings to turn and look at the public and say, I'm so proud of my town because we've taken a contentious issue and we just had wonderful dialogue. We never had screaming, yelling, fighting, cursing, attacks. It was all constructive. And again, comp plans, zoning amendments, noise ordinance, STR laws, all these things. And every time I was proud and happy to say, you guys did a great job. So I know that that's going to be the tenor here tonight. The other thing I would say is I've heard rumor that we're going to vote on it tonight. That's not going to happen. This is going to be a several months process. I envision reopening the public hearing again in November. We'll take the feedback that we get tonight and go back and digest it as a board and the housing task force as a committee. And in November, have a second public hearing. I imagine doing the same thing in December, and then we'll see where we are in December, and maybe we're ready to adopt, maybe we feel we need to continue to tweak, but this is not a rush. So I think I just ask everybody to be patient, give your thoughts, your ideas. Tonight, we also will not be, this is a public hearing. You're going to give us information. You can ask questions, but we're not going to sit at the table here tonight and answer them. There'll be a tape of this, it'll all be documented, and we'll go back and one by one look at all these things. We're not most likely going to come back and say, Susan, to your question, blah, 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 but we will be addressing just as we have from day one.
Yeah, and I do see 4 housing oversight task force members, including myself here. So people are right here to listen.
Yep.
Besides the town board, housing oversight task force is here to listen.
And there's one on Zoom too.
Excellent.
Oh, yay.
So with that, I'm going to ask the chair, the co-chair of the task force to just get up and address us for 1 minute, and then I'm going to open the public hearing.
A little more than 1 minute.
Okay.
Not much. I'm going to try and speak. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you, Bill,
You're welcome.
and thank you, town board, for the opportunity to serve our town in this vitally important capacity, to recommend updates to the zoning and subdivision laws that will further the goals of affordable year-round housing and strengthen environmental protection of Woodstock in alignment with the 2018 comprehensive plan. The Housing Oversight Task Force, HOTF, is a group of volunteers, all members of town boards and committees that work on housing issues in Woodstock. We were formed, as Bill said, in July 2021 after the town received a Greenway grant for comprehensive plan implementation. It's actually a thing once you have a comprehensive plan, implementing it. So it was exciting, focusing on zoning updates for housing. Kirk Ritchie, who's here, and I co-chair the task force. The other members are Richard Hefner, Laura Rickey, Judith Kerman, Jeff Collins, I see on there, and Michael Castiglione. Our members collectively have dozens of years of professional experience in planning, the environment, government, community affairs, academia, the arts, and much more. We have worked closely with the support of Nan Stolzenberg, a top New York State professional land use and environmental planner, and John Lyons, a renowned local land use lawyer who has worked on conservation-based development policy and training for the DEC and communities across New York State. Our mission is threefold: to make housing more available to people with a range of income levels and backgrounds, while preserving our town's unique character and scale and continuing to protect our treasure.
I'm gonna open that window. Pardon.
Pardon?
Yeah, we
There are
have
people
somebody
out there that
waving
want to
through the
get in,
window.
but they can't, so they want to hear.
They can't
So
hear.
if you wanna open the
Oh,
window.
wait, wait, wait.
Okay.
I just wanted to note a little bit more from our perspective. We've been tasked with devising revisions that will result in housing that Woodstockers need, meet strict environmental criteria, and be in scale and character of our town. The mission and our goals are amply described in the purpose clause of the housing chapter, which is Article 8 in the zoning code that's being proposed, created, which states, this article is established to promote and recognize that Woodstock is proud of its history as a diverse small town that has adapted to major population changes over many decades. This article reflects the citizens' values that, as captured in the comprehensive plan, include appreciation of open space and environmental responsibility, concern for maintaining the artistic identity of the town in the face of economic pressures, and the desire to retain a population which reflects various economic status, age, family groups, and lifestyles. Our proposed changes will significantly move the needle to provide for accessible year-round housing for our community and protect our environment in ways not previously envisioned. We've considered every comment we received, large and small, which have resulted in some revisions, all on the town's website and in handouts tonight. And we continue to consider all the written input the town receives. The task force has from the beginning been dedicated itself to inclusion, professionalism, and diligence. And we thank you very much for being here tonight and for your input.
Thank you. Jacqueline, can you read the public notice, please? Jackie, on here?
Yeah, Jackie's on mute.
You're muted, Jackie.
You're on mute.
Yeah, Jackie, you're on mute.
Somebody else have to unmute her.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you.
Go
At a
ahead.
meeting held in September 2023, the town board of the town of Woodstock scheduled a public hearing for October 17th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the town offices, 45 Como Drive, Woodstock, New York, and via Zoom to hear comment on the proposed amendment to Chapter 202, subdivision of land, and Chapter 260, zoning law, Town of Woodstock, New York, amending sections of that law. All may now be heard.
Thank you, Jackie. So what I'm going to do, we're going to have a 2-minute limit. I'm going to be very strict about keeping everyone to it. What I'll do is you're within 15 seconds. I'll just tap the table. We're going to go through. Everybody will get a chance. If we still have time and people have more comments, we'll continue on. I want to just again remind everyone, this is not the end of this. There'll be several more public hearings, and also written comments will be accepted. So with that, I'm going to start right over in this corner here.
Everyone on Zoom has a hard time hearing, so make sure that you speak loud and clear during the time to speak.
Thank you. And actually, I'm going to have the clock here, but before you start, if you could stand, give me your name so we can keep a list of who spoke. Okay, with that, Alicia? John?
Yeah, thank you.
John Ludwig.
My name's John Ludwig. This zoning proposal is not about affordable housing. I read the mission of the Housing Oversight Task Force. Their mission does not include the word affordable. When I've asked what about this proposal makes the housing affordable, I was told 2 things. 1, regulations, and 2, deed restrictions. But there are no regulations proposed. When I made that point to a member of the Housing Committee, I was told, quote, the town is going to have to set this up to implement it, so they have to figure that out. What that means is that the most important element, the element that might make the housing affordable, is not under consideration at this time. If this proposal is passed, the barn door will be open for lots of new expensive housing in Woodstock. And when will the regulations be put in place that might close that barn door? It's not being discussed. This zoning proposal will benefit the developers who want to create a lot more expensive units in Woodstock. Unfortunately, the people who've worked so hard and so long to bring this about have missed the target. The town board should be focusing on issues like income verification. What kind of agency does Woodstock need to make sure units go to those who need them? Should we be bringing in an agency like Rupco to provide something like Woodstock Commons? Without that kind of focus, we'll just be increasing the number of expensive units and we'll be right back where we started, but worse off.
Thank you, John. Next, sir, would you like to speak? No, good. Rachel?
I will just stand up.
You probably, just because then they can hear you in the mic. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Marco Havens. I have questions around that have to do with for the housing commission or whatever they are. There's so many different names. It's hard for me to figure out which one is which. I want to know how much energy and focus has been put into returning humans that have been displaced from Woodstock back into our community. I think community retention is huge and very important, and I don't know what zoning might have to do with that, but I think that's super important to be thinking about. As well, I would like to know, like, where, and I haven't had the time to read everything, but I have read you guys your updates. What is the story around like balance between non-affordable and affordable housing? Like, that's a really big thing that we need to be looking at, because 4 affordable units to 10, like, that's not the story that any of us want to be looking at. We need to be looking at a way wider scale of affordability in this story around opening up development in the community. I also, and I wanted to speak to this in another issue, I'm going to continue to bring it up, and I know that it's frightening for some. Kevin, I'm not sure how you all feel about this, but I want to talk about how we can combine protecting our lands, conservation, and housing, because we have a lot of members within our community who can live very close to the ground, very close to off-grid. We can make that happen. And there's massive amounts of property owned by the Land Conservancy that can be brought to housing for people who can also perhaps maybe create food forests on these lands, like not just bare land, but like let's feed some people and maybe animals.
Thank you, Rachel. Would you like to speak?
Sure.
Just give me your name.
Annalee Orslage. Hi. So I'm a child of Woodstock. My family's been here for 5 generations now. We moved back here in a school bus in the 1980s. We lived in our apartment was on up by the monastery there. It was $300 for a 3-bedroom. I was able to raise my son here as a single mother for 20 years. I lived in Woodstock. I mean, I was thinking on my way here, how many places I lived in Woodstock? I mean, from Shady to 5 different apartments in the town. The last place I lived at was in Bearsville, and our rent was $1,000 a month for a 3-bedroom. Now, I got a call from my landlord that said, I need to renovate, so I'm gonna need you to move out in 90 days. This was 6 years ago. So I was scrambling. I couldn't find a place for us to live 6 years ago. And we were making decent money, I felt. So basically, I spent 6 months sort of displaced with my daughter. And I now live in Glasgow. My sister commutes here as a gardener to work on estates in Woodstock. So when the whole COVID sort of housing crisis happened, I had friends sleeping on my couch. I had friends who were diagnosed with cancer and sleeping on people's porches. And I felt like so many people I knew was they were on the verge of homelessness. And it was like a serious crisis. I mean, we're watching an entire generation of Woodstock being completely pushed into the fringe of this county and into the hills. And it's devastating for me to watch because Woodstock doesn't feel like Woodstock to me anymore. My father unionized the town workers. He worked for the town for over a decade, and he had 10 children. Not one of us can afford to live in Woodstock anymore. So I started a group called Catskills Reclaimed on Facebook because I just wanted people to get together. How do we? Everyone's complaining, but
Annalee,
like,
thank
yes.
you. I have to cut you off. It's 2 minutes. but
Okay, thank you. Can I just say really quickly that yesterday I looked up rental, and there was only 2 rentals available in Woodstock. One was $25,000 a month. Okay,
right.
and the second was $4,000 a month. There was also $7,500,
Annalee.
$17,000 a month.
Annalee,
This is insane. Thank you.
Please, it's a good point, and please say that you can come back. Just give me your name.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Stern. I just sat in the front to not take up a chair, but now I'm speaking by surprise. There is a apparent conflict between affordable housing and protecting the environment. And I wanted to just raise a difficult issue that I think is there in between those 2 things and the way we hold them, which has to do with cars. It's a problem that at so many environmental meetings, I don't hear people facing, which is that our basic MO, our basic assumption is that everyone is going to get into a car to go where they need to go every single time they need to go somewhere. Children can't do that. Old people can't do that, or they find it frightening. And it's basically making a more and more unhealthy environment for everyone because we're not walking the way we like to. So I want to just put that out there that when we think about affordable housing, we should also be thinking about walkability. And it's for the animals as well.
Next. Would you like- Yes,
No, I just can't do that.
sir? Would you like to- Okay. Just state your name for the.
Yeah, my name is Michael Culver. I have 2 questions. One, I just got on the myths and facts handout. It says the HOTF analyzed the entire town and found very few large parcels that can accommodate multiple unit housing. Permissible zoning districts are R5, R3, or smaller. I don't understand why that is, and so I'd like an explanation of why 3 lot. I have 3 acre lots on my street. Why can't they be a 4 unit be built there? That's one. And the other thing is, I want to know if anyone's done any modeling or simulations that took real life situations and applied the new zoning, see how that would really look in real life. And I want to know if that's occurred for testing.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Susan? State your name there.
Hi, I'm Susan Painter. I think we all care about affordable housing. So that we do care about, but let's just put that to rest. I'm concerned about the added strain the new zoning could cause to Woodstock's water supply. The Woodstock Environmental Commission gave recommendations to the Housing Task Force and asked that the town examine its water resources and the limits of the aquifer's resilience to determine at what point the aquifer will run dry. I want to be sure that WEC's recommendations are included in the new zoning. The zoning proposal could allow multiple multiplex buildings on a single lot, could allow multiplex. in many neighborhoods. The language for the protection of water resources for these multiplexes in most neighborhoods needs to be strengthened from hydrological analysis when needed. Who determines? Excuse me?
That was the window.
Oh, sorry. Who determines when this analysis is needed? The new zoning does recommend authorizing the planning board to require a hydrological study for subdivisions. These regulations should be required for multiplex units.
Yes.
As part of our research on stopping Terramore glamping site, we had our individual wells in Woodstock tested by a hydrologist, and we found that significant drawdown in our wells up to 2.5 miles away from Saugerties. Wells in my neighborhood have been severely impacted during droughts. If 3 and 4-plex buildings are built on streets like ours, they will potentially use 3 to 4 times more water than a single-family dwelling, putting water supplies at increased risk. The HOTF has spent 2 years working hard to create this zoning, and the public has had 2 weeks to understand the complex document. I'm glad that we're going to have more time and additional public hearings. Thank you.
I should just, if anybody wants to leave their statement here so that we can add it to the written statement to the record, that would be great. Miss, would you like to speak next to Susan?
Yeah.
Speak. Okay. Would you like to
Yes.
speak? Okay. Just give us your name.
Allison Blank. I'm just going to address a few of the things that I've been reading about in letters to the editor and so on, and I think I don't understand what I believe to be misinformation. So in a recent letter, I saw someone describe this zoning as allowing condo development and large apartments. That isn't what I believe is in the zoning. What we're talking about frequently, what they are talking about frequently is multiplexes, meaning two-family home, 3-family home. These are on a small footprint, which would in all likelihood actually be smaller than my current house in which I live alone. When you look at smart growth, people always talk about clustering people together so that the entire rest of the space becomes a green space. In terms of a variety of issues that people mention, any proposal will still have to go before the zoning board. And there will be traffic studies and water studies, perhaps not sufficient, but in terms of what you just mentioned, but there will be studies. What I want to say is, my understanding is that this isn't the answer to the problem, because we still need the builders, the land, and so on. But what this does is create an opportunity for some smart growth that will enable the landscape to stay Woodstock. On my street, there are houses that have multiple people in them. I don't know that. It's a house. That's what I expect this zoning will afford. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Gentlemen, what was that, Martin? Martin, would you like to speak?
What about Judy?
I was going to skip over the
The sides?
committee members, but if you.
Well,
I was
she's
asked
here.
to speak on
Okay.
behalf of the planning.
Okay,
Not as a
Perfect.
member of HOTF.
Okay.
I have that too. The planning board supports the proposed zoning and subdivision laws. Our suggestions have been incorporated into the most recent drafts. In our opinion, the new code will give us additional tools for facilitating affordable housing and protecting the environment.
thank you, Judy. Just state your name for the recording.
My name is Martin Mills, Woodstock, and I understand the need that there is for houses, affordable housing. And we're working with the town board on STR issues for years now, 2019. committees, and I'm also a member of the zoning board of appeals, and also an STR owner for 10 years. And
STR is
short-term rental.
Thank you.
And I'm just here to listen and hear what everybody says, really. Specifically, I think that, there is a need to adjust the zoning for affordable housing units. I don't know if the ADUs will solve that problem or just put out a fire with gasoline without understanding the cost of these developments and how they would be paid and how someone would be able to afford that and have an affordable unit, dwelling unit on their property. As far as the STRs are concerned, I just asked the board to recognize the people who have been following the rules as a permitted STR and put language down to give us some sort of awareness of what's happening with the current STR regulations and how they fold into the new zoning regulations before they are adopted. So we know, because we put a lot of financial and time and energy into these SDRs, and they not only benefit the property owners, they benefit the town. This town is dependent on people coming in and spending money at the businesses, and they're not day tripping anymore because they're not getting DUIs unless they really want to be in trouble. So there is a point to STRs. And so I hope the board will recognize that and work on that before the next public hearing.
Thank you, Martin.
I remind everyone to speak up when it's your turn or come to the front so people on Zoom can hear you.
Okay, Miss in no, the person kneeling right here?
I want to say something.
No, we're going row by row. Everybody will get a chance. So if you could just stand and state your name for the recording.
Sure. My name is Catherine Chandler Cornwall. I'm not familiar with, this is my first time here, I'm not familiar with what's been going on.
I think you're gonna have to come up front.
Oh,
because you're not loud enough.
Sure.
Okay. So I totally agree with everything I've heard apart from, I wasn't quite sure what you were talking about, but it sounded like it was legit. I grew up here. It's been very difficult. I'm 35. Most of my friends, they don't live here, but we can afford to live here. I don't think I really need to get into that. It's an emotional subject, I think, for a lot of us. Something that I am guessing has been discussed, but I haven't heard yet, is talk of tiny houses on properties. My mom lives here. I can't put a tiny house there. I can't live in a teepee there. I would. I can't have a composting toilet there. I can't build with aircrete because it's not to code, but it is actually a material that people are building with. Making domes, it's $4,000 to build an aircrete dome home. There's a website called Dome Gaia that I recommend people check out. I know they're building them in Thailand. They have built them in Minnesota. The R value is, it can be done. They have to be wide enough. There's also hempcrete that I don't know much about, but that I think hemp is one of the most sustainable fibers on the planet. A lot of water.
Oh, 15 seconds left.
Okay, also tax protection, because if I did build something out of wood on my mom's property, first of all, we can't because we could only build a studio and I couldn't live there. But if it was built out of wood, then her taxes would go up. So I think there should be protection for people who are supporting local affordable housing.
Catherine, keep that thought, and when we get done, you can come back and speak again.
Okay.
What I would remind everybody though is keep in mind, this is a public hearing on the proposed changes, so it's far more beneficial for us to hear comments directed at those laws and the possible changes. So, Paula, did you wanna? If you could just come up and speak into the mic here, and actually maybe you should really face the board, because that way it'll get recorded and so there's maybe a slight angle.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paula Chandler. I've lived here in Woodstock since 1990. I remember when things were affordable here. And I remember when the Repco project was presented, there was tremendous resistance from this town. It was involved in litigation for over 7 years. People were afraid of the construction driving down the road. They were afraid, and there was a NIMBY thing going on here, that people were gonna come from all over and live in these units. So Repco had to reduce the number of their units by 30%. Now, the challenge when you're dealing, a real solution for affordable housing is that we have to build it. We need to work on land that's owned by Woodstock. We need to do a bond issue. The minute you bring federal funding in, you cannot dictate who can or cannot live there. And that was the challenge with Repco, because Repco could not say, oh, this is just for Woodstock, even though it's in Woodstock. But if we control the money, if we see who's funding us, if we post a bond, we borrow money from the library. If you look at the numbers and you put it across all parcels, people who own property here, there's a civic responsibility here. And, you know, I spent $200 a year for the library. I'm happy to spend $200 to fund a bond issue so that we can have affordable housing for our young people, for our seniors. And this town does own land. Part of it has town water and sewer, where we could build housing for our people, for our young people, for our seniors. But don't think by letting people build accessory apartments or what have you, it's so expensive to build that it's not going to create affordable housing. That's not your solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
State your name there for the
Yep,
record.
I'm Catherine Teagan, co-chair of the Housing Committee. And in case you don't know, the Housing Committee's role is to research and to advocate for ways that will help create affordable housing in Woodstock. We are an advisory committee to the town board. We do not have the authority to build anything. But our role is to make recommendations to the town board. And tonight, the Housing Committee strongly recommends that the town board vote to approve the updated housing zoning code. We believe that the new zoning code will create more affordable housing in Woodstock while preserving our small town character and natural setting, and at the same time deterring overdevelopment. The updated code has been written to protect Woodstock's environment by requiring open space in new subdivisions and by requiring environmental reviews of the land. The housing code is meant to protect us as well as future generations of Woodstockers. The changes to the code are written to protect our environment, our water, and to carefully safeguard housing density. In addition, the updated code requires the affordable housing be integrated into new subdivisions and into new multifamily housing that is from 3 to 8 units. Any proposed housing that is larger than 8 units must be approved by the planning board or the town board. We are not envisioning apartment buildings in Woodstock, and the affordability and environmental requirements may in fact present a challenge to developers. The code also requires that new housing will be designed to fit in with the scale and character of our existing homes. On the Housing Committee, we are imagining small clusters of creatively designed attached homes that will emulate single-family homes. In closing, quickly, these zoning updates are just the beginning. We have a lot more work to do to create the policies that we need to support the creation of a lot more affordable housing in this town.
Would you like to speak? Would you like to speak? Would you like to speak? Kurt, actually, we're gonna leave off the committee unless.
Well, he might want to say
I'm
something.
gonna speak as a resident.
He's a person.
Okay.
Everybody here is a person.
Sorry. And I even say that.
So tonight I speak as a Woodstock resident of 30 years.
What's your name? What's your name?
My name is
Kirk Ritchie.
Kirk Ritchie, sorry. Then I declare that I'm a housing advocate seeking solidarity with others in my community. Housing for young families, children who can walk to school, ride to their friends and neighbors that live nearby. Housing for our seniors that wish to age in their hometown village, near most of their necessities in life. Housing for our ever-present workforce. For those who prefer to live near where they work. In 2017, when I was the chair of the comprehensive plan, Don Allen, who was then the fire commissioner for Woodstock Fire Department, came to the housing comprehensive plan committee and said, housing, housing, housing. I need housing for my volunteers, my young volunteers. That's what we need. That was in 2017. Moderately income housing for our year-round residents is what Woodstock needs most. Many people, hope takes the edge off the despair and anxiety. The roommates for housing uncertainty or uncertainty. So I'll say that again. For many people, hope takes the edge off despair and anxiety. The roommates of housing uncertainty. Ending housing uncertainty will strengthen our community. Increased housing is good for business and strengthens our local economy. I believe us current residents have an obligation to face and act to solve Woodstock's housing challenge, to ensure that our town retains our community's qualities, values, and character that we all identify as being Woodstock. I'm an advocate of moderate and low-income housing for year-round residents, and I enjoy the benefits of solidarity of housing advocacy with others, and I will work to grow this aspect of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Liana. So I feel like there's been a housing crisis my whole adult life. It obviously got so much worse during the pandemic. I've been dehomed for at least somewhere between 4 or 5 years, but even before then, I was constantly in fear of being dehomed. And as a woman, a young woman who became disabled at a young age, I'm gonna try to talk fast, so don't judge me, please. It just like somehow like the regulations and the lack of consistent advocacy for disabled people, especially young disabled people. I'm not trying to say that that's not true for old elderly disabled people, but my experience being a younger disabled woman, there's been like a severe lack of consistent advocacy and of training for the people to really understand what systemic oppression is like and what the actual realities are for people who are systemically made vulnerable. So I basically ended up having to move like constantly. I could never get the ground under my feet. And also I found it very difficult to find affordable and safe and healthy housing. And I was severely mold poisoned, and I know so many other people that were severely mold poisoned as well, made chronically ill. I almost died. I know other people who have died. It's a very horrible reality in this area, and not only here. And speaking of aircrete, I want to talk to you. Also, I don't know much about that, but concrete. I'm wondering about like mold-resistant building materials and I mean, a lot more around the whole mold issue. It's huge, especially affecting people's physical health, but then people say mental health, but you have no stability in housing and you're being made ill, and then you've got abusive people not understanding anything. You can't get medical care. Like it goes on and on. It's horrifying.
Thank you, Deanna.
Okay, thank you. And I have other things, like questions like relating more to.
Okay, so we go back around.
Yeah, focusing on the.
No. The young lady here. We're going back and forth, sorry. That's okay.
Hi.
Come on up and state your name for the recording.
Hi, I'm Eileen McNally, and I wasn't expecting this meeting. I did come here to the town board meeting for a public be heard, which I'll come back to next week, but it all relates because I'm very concerned about the issue of sustainable development in the town, which involves keeping the commercial district in the commercial district and adhering to the demarcation between that and residential areas. So I have my own particular issue going on with someone across the street from me who wants to have multiple businesses, operate multiple businesses on a hamlet residential plot, and this is not allowed. And this also involves the building department making a code to facilitate that. So I think that this meeting here.
Yeah, but this is just about the public. hearing.
I know, but there is a correlation because I'll be reading the information about the proposed zoning changes. But I think what needs to be kept in mind is sustainable development and allowing residents to have the space to live. Yeah, and I'm also very curious how private entities, private developers will be expected to create affordable housing. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Where's the third row? No, you're, so, well, first, Mick, do you wanna, Mike, do you want? Come up and.
I'll just pitch in a couple of thoughts. I appreciate the hard work the housing committee has been doing. I'm Michael Platsky. I've lived in this town full-time since 1997, and I was the guest that never left since 1980. How do we define affordable? Is one thing that comes to mind. Affordable to one person is not affordable to another. How do you create housing that's affordable for someone who works full-time in one of the retail stores, for instance? I'm of moderate income. I never had a problem surviving in this town until the last couple of years. So there's a lot of outside development coming in. There's a lot of national and multinational real estate companies coming in here and throwing their weight around. It would be nice if there could be some legislation to find a way to limit that. And again, I appreciate the work that's being done here. And let's let everyone else pitch in.
Thank you.
Can I do it from here? Is that
Yes,
loud
just,
enough?
I think so.
Susan Golden, co-chair of the Town of Woodstock Housing Committee. To the point, zoning doesn't build, it controls what, where, and how things are built. Good zoning balances opportunities for residents to find quality, affordable housing and protections for the nature we all love. And I wanted to highlight for the committee some opportunities our town has never offered before. First of all, Mike, the proposed law defines what affordable means. Developers and builders can no longer just say they will offer affordable homes without meeting the actual definition up to 80% of county AMI. A variety of housing styles allowed in most zones. Multifamily homes and smaller home styles, while not necessarily affordable, the official definition, serve a market unable to afford Woodstock middle-income families. Required affordable housing units is required in both conservation subdivisions, which is a new environmental tool for Woodstock, and in any floating residential district, both larger developments. Zoning can incentivize certain kinds of building. The proposed law contains small density bonuses for developments where 50% of the units are for seniors or are affordable or meet specific requirements, standards of green building and renewable energy. And many people have expressed concern about implementing the law. The enforcement should come before the law. The Housing Committee has submitted policy recommendations to support this new law, including training for boards and departments, increased fees to reflect the work and respect for the law, creation of a housing fund, guidelines for managing affordable housing, enforcement options for the building department to control STRs, short-term rentals, a variety of tax-related incentives, who said that? Analia, to promote affordables. On a more personal note, as volunteer coordinator for Home Share Woodstock, I've heard the stories of dozens of home seekers, students, seniors, workers, many are artists and musicians. They earn on average about $20,000 a year, and most are able to afford between $500 and $700 a month in rent. They don't want to live in an apartment building. They want to live where the rest of us live. They want to stay or return to Woodstock. They value our community and our peaceful nature. They prefer a private space with their own bedroom and bathroom, no mold, and working heat, please.
Thank you, Susan. Next to you. You good? Next. Thank you. Yeah, you, right, there's good. Just state
Thanks,
your
right
name.
here, like in American Got Talent. To the superintendent and town.
If you could just state your name for the.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lori Felber. To the superintendent and town board, I first want to thank the Housing Oversight Task Force for its hard work and dedication for these past 2 years. Currently, I am holding a map which signify the areas of development and density. Under the map is stated the proposed zoning recommendations for multiple family development ranging from 6 to 8 up to 48+ units. I like to understand the impact of this such a proposed massive construction to Woodstock, especially with 18 designations of 48+ units. To comprehend the implication of this proposal, I picked out 2 separate parcels and tried to understand the reason behind these choices: Hutchin Hill Road and McGill Road. I reference the following: the Ulster County Parcel Viewer for location of sites, Woodstock zoning overlay, the New York State DEC interactive map of water, streams and rivers, the Green Streets handbook to understand infrastructure, and finally, New Jersey Highlands Regional Master Plan for detailed mitigations and requirements. From this research, I would like to ask the task force a few questions. 1, please explain why it is necessary to place 18 high-density housing on 48+ units outside the town infrastructure. Any highly dense housing should be connected to town utilities. 2, the non-point pollution on Hutchin Hill Road, which will be generated by construction vehicles, traffic, and road salt, will immediately downgrade the upper part of the Salt Hill River from the rating of A to C. This same analysis can be applied to the stream parallel to McVeigh Road. The mitigation requirements for alleviating this pollution will be at taxpayers' expense. Does the task force take into account the money required to install bioswales, runnels, smoke rippling, and sediment filters to keep our waters pure? All these proposed developments are outside the town infrastructure. This brings up more questions. What type of septic will be installed? Has there been soil geological testing to see if this is even feasible? Will a single water pump service all 48 or more homes in these areas? How will drilling affect the underwater river and aquifers that provide drinking water in other parts of town? I will close with a quote from Aldo Leonard, the conservationist and author. A river or stream is a cycle of energy from sun to plants to insects to fish. It is a continuum broken only by humans.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next.
Hi, everybody.
If you could come up so that they can hear you
I
on.
don't mind, I'm on my feet, I'd rather just come loud.
Okay. Get name, please.
My name's Jen Nelson. My greatest concern is that all these task force, they all speak of the environment. And yet, the illegal shady dump still sits on our aquifer, has not been removed. It seems a dangerous game to pass new laws allowing more development when the water we need to survive has already been threatened and ignored. How can we trust that any of this has to do with the environment when our aquifer right now, every day, is leaching chemicals? It affects all of us. If you really care about the environment, start there. It's been there 3 years. This has been talked about for 2.
Thank you.
have a very brief point, I don't want to be repetitive. I know that the percentage of affordable units to luxury units was 10%, has been raised to 15%. It seems to me that if this is an incentive for affordable housing and not an incentive for developers, that figure needs to be raised.
Tom Tobler, I'm concerned about this.
Just tell us your name first.
Tom Tobler.
Tom Tobler.
I'm concerned about the pace of this, in that you may have new zoning laws, but then if you're allowing 50 to 100 houses being built in a large plot under these new zoning requirements, it just smacks in the face of a small town being built in one location. And that needs to be addressed as far as how much is built in one area in a certain amount of time. Like a house being built in one side of town, another one built on the other side of town every year. 2 more is okay, just having now at one time. These concerns of the water environment. Also, as far as low income or affordable housing, it could be done in a sense more in urban areas where people actually don't need a car to get around to use the public services of the town. And if you want to have moderate income housing, that would be for people who can afford it. Put a house or buy a house. I mean, what makes you think that everyone that is going to be in the lottery system, whatever system you have, to afford to buy a house that is built for affordability? What makes you think that in 2 years they won't turn around and sell it? Or that they'll rent it out to someone and make a profit? You know, are we going to be entering a social service type environment?
Thank you. Gentlemen, or the person, oh, Pat, sorry, would you like to speak?
Pat Jackson. I know you've been in the process for 2 years, but you started during the pandemic, and I think there's been 1 or maybe 2 public meetings. And the main point that I want to make is that you might not agree by seeing this room, but I think most people in town do not know this is happening. I think that the zoning of their town might be changed any day. They don't know. So I would like to urge for more education of the community before anything else happens. I think it's easy.
So that everybody can speak. Can we cut let's all clap at the end, okay? Just so we can move it along.
We're cutting into our 2 minutes.
It's easy to stay within
They
the
are.
county initiative, you know, if you're already aware of it. And I don't think it really is a means to create affordable housing, which seems to be what people are most interested in.
Interesting.
So Bill, I just wanted to say that I think explaining rezoning, try to educate a greater amount of the community, like put ads in the paper. And here's a map of the proposed zoning, rezoning. I know it's hard to see, but
15 seconds, Pat.
you know, there's a huge change happening, and I think you have to outreach to the community a lot more.
Okay, thank you. Fourth row there? Anybody in the fourth row?
People on the fourth row on the outside here.
You in the fourth row? Okay.
Hi, I'm Alex Galito.
I've been tangentially involved in this process for over 2 years. When as chair of the Environmental Commission, I recommended that a WAC member should be involved on the housing task force and was told no. Since that time, the WAC wrote 2 letters commenting on the drafts of the proposal and asking a number of questions which were never answered. Although the changes do strengthen some of the abilities of the planning board to mandate conservation easements instead of just clustered developments and offer a better way to calculate conservation acreage, the larger concern to me is what a build out of the new code would look like and the impact it would have on Woodstock's natural resources. Using the current proposal, because we want affordable housing. If we want 200 units of affordable housing, we will need to build over 1,300 homes. What will that look like when it comes to our aquifer capacity? Already, there are people in Woodstock and neighboring towns who have experienced their wells running dry at times. And once we start to see a large increase in impervious surfaces like driveways, buildings, sheds, and pools, we further limit the recharge of the aquifer, as well as increasing our flooding risk. What will a full build out look like for our greenhouse gas emissions, waste, traffic patterns, and availability of services like EMTs and firefighters? Until we can fully understand what it is that we need, what we have, and what we can support, we should not be making any wholesale zoning changes. That kind of assessment can help us anticipate and prevent serious problems that might arise 5, 10, 20 years from now. We need to understand how enforcement will work and invest in it, not just hope for the best. We also have the option of taking pieces of the new code and leaving others behind. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And I just think of it like this. When you want to bake a cake, you don't take 2 eggs, a bag of sugar, a stick of butter, and a tub of frosting, throw them in the oven, and hope it comes out. You figure out how much you need of each ingredient, you go to your pantry, you see what you already have and what you need to get, and you follow a recipe so that when you're done, you're more likely to have a real cake at the end and not just a big old mess.
The person sitting behind you?
There's someone right here. and
Someone
someone
here.
All right, you, and then we're gonna go to the back row.
I think there's somebody behind Pat also.
We'll go to the next one, we're going around.
Okay.
You, and then the seating.
What I want to say, I don't know.
And you.
What I want to say, I don't know.
Hold on, please tell us your name.
Daphne Rosenblum. What I want to say, I don't know if it has much to do with the zoning, but I think that it's important that if you do any zoning to take into account people that walk, people that use bicycles, so you're not risking your life every time. I know a lot of people have seen me on a bicycle, just to make a better shoulder, so it's more accessible living here without a car. If you don't want to drive, you don't like to drive, or you cannot drive, and it's just more democratic because cars have been around only for 100 years. Before that, we managed for millions without it. So we can maybe accommodate so that there's other ways of moving around that's not a car, and then your life is in danger all the time. Also, I heard about the killing of a bear because he went into somebody's house, and it's also, please, let's try to make it so that we can live with the other animals that live here and we don't threaten their living too.
Yes.
Like bears and.
Jacket, and then we're gonna go to the 4th seated row.
My name is Brian Murray, and I am just curious as to the extent, which I believe is quite extremely high, but I'm curious as to the extent of the short-term rental situation. And I'm very curious to know how many short-term rentals there are in town. I'm very curious to know how many of them are empty 9 months a year. The economic impact of the town, on the town, of having empty houses is enormous. And not only the economic impact, but the character of the town. Restaurants that are open and don't pretend to have any interest in being open other than Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I've heard numbers in the hundreds of short-term rentals that are empty 9 months a year, and it's a scandal that we're talking about development when this issue doesn't seem to be on anyone's mind except as a defense, a preemptive strike against a discussion of this subject. So I'm very curious to know what that number is and why, in fact, if there are regulations to limit this, they're not being enforced.
Fourth row, is anyone in the fourth row? No? Next.
Coming over it, yeah.
There you go. State your name in 2 minutes.
Coming up 6, nobody will be. Okay, Jude Salato, lived here for 42 years. This is a reckless experiment that will radically overhaul our zoning laws. I heard Woodstock. 3-plex and 4-plex apartment buildings will be allowed on a single lot under the proposal. They can be 4,000 square feet with 4 separate entrances, have 8 parking spots, and will use large quantities of water, produce large quantities of septic waste and garbage, and will increase traffic and deliveries. They will not look like a single-family home. Attached 8-unit buildings can be built as multifamily housing. Multifamily housing can also consist of mobile homes and townhouses. They can be 40 units without town water and sewer, and 60 units with town water and sewer. Only the scenic overlay and the R8 districts are excluded. Those developments will be allowed everywhere else in Woodstock. Woodstock is filled with mountains, valleys, waterways, floodplains, forests, meadows, pollinators, and wildlife. There are many sensitive environmental areas that will now be threatened by overdevelopment. The proposal also allows investors to buy a house, build an accessory apartment, and rent out both with no affordability requirement for either. So let's dispense with the notion that this proposal is about affordable housing. The HOTF posted this on the town website, quote, "The proposed code cannot guarantee affordable housing because that requires someone with the resources to build affordable housing," end quote. What is guaranteed is that there will be more investor-driven development, more density, and more environmental damage. The HOTF produced a map that shows potential locations and densities for multifamily housing. This map gives a good insight into how the HOTF thinks. They envisioned overdevelopment everywhere in our town.
Thank you, Jude.
So don't let pro-development forces dismantle our zoning protection.
Richard? No? You, the judge. Sure. Person in the green? Yes.
My turn?
Yeah, come on up.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna stay here.
Okay.
I just want to
Just state your name for the
The
tape.
name is Lisa Jobson, and I just want to say that overhauling zoning laws and allowing lots of accessory dwelling units or ADUs does not give us affordable housing. I agree with what John said in the beginning. I don't see anything that talks about affordable housing. I don't see anything that defines what affordable housing is. When Rough Code did build Woodstock Commons, it was very clear. I know that there was a lot of backlash. It was built, but it was very clear what would be a rent for a single person, a rent for a family. I don't know anything about the rents that we're talking about here. Also, I'm a senior. I've lived here 35 years, and my taxes are going up, despite the fact that there should be a 2% tax cap. So I don't see anything in these laws that are protecting homeowners, or that really care about homeowners. I'd be very happy to have an accessory dwelling unit or, you know, a house share. I can't even afford to fix up my house to do that. So I don't agree with any of these changes to zoning laws. Zoning laws protect us, and I want those protections. Thank you.
We'll work our way back over. The gentleman by the door? Next. Okay, so I'm gonna go right across the back. right against the door?
Who's in back row?
Is there a fifth row chair? Oh, okay, so let's go to the fifth row. Person with the glasses? Shaking his head, no, 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 Iris?
We're all there.
State your name for the.
Iris York. I read last year's version and I read the April version. I sent in my comments. And a lot of my comments were incorporated into the second and to this latest. So thank you to the task force for doing that. What I wrote here was the leftover comments that did not make it in. Whether they were overlooked or you don't agree, that I don't know. I'm not gonna go into all that detail, so I'm not reading page and chapter. So, but I will just mention some of the more general comments. My biggest concern is how ambitious this zoning update is by allowing so many different kinds of structures in so many districts. It's an invitation for developers to develop more and more housing, whether it be 3 and 4-plex structures, multifamily or clustered lot developments. Even with a certain percentage to be left untouched, it still will end up looking like suburbia. It's too much all at once. I believe that the proper enforcement control should be in place before the law is enacted. Too much room for developers to come in and do what they want. There doesn't seem to be any way to ensure that the affordable housing goes to local people. Anyone from anywhere, as long as they meet the income criteria, can move in. While I'm sure there will be some percentage of locals just based on statistics, assuming locals apply, there is no guarantee this will benefit the people. I think you are really trying to target the locals. I have a concern that with 3 and 4-plex buildings where 1 unit must be affordable, there is the potential for developers to charge high rents for the non-affordable units to make up for the ones that, one that is. And the rest is very detailed. So
You can hand it into us. Thank you, Iris.
I'll do is send an email to the rest of the town board for this, and you wanted to, yes.
Next person in the fifth row? Anybody else in the fifth row? Going once, going twice? Tom, I'm gonna go to Tom because he's had his hands up. Michael, you walked in, you're next.
So am I next?
Yeah, come on up.
My name's Tom Jenkins. My family's been here since 1688. The character of the town has changed in a positive way. Everyone in this room has come here because of the character of the town. And nobody's been paying attention over the last few years about what's going on with our town. My position would be, who is going to control the land where the low-income housing is going to be? Who is going to control the traffic? Is the town going to provide water and sewage? We have to consider one other thing in our town that makes our town family oriented. We still have a school. Without a school, okay, this town will collapse and become a bedroom community for people who have lots of money. We need young people in the town. We need housing for them. We need a place for them to go to school. I went to Onteora. It had the highest region scholarships per capita when I was in high school there. It's still a good place to go to school. My position would be, one of the concerns was developers coming to our town and pushing the locals around and saying, this is how we're going to do things. I think that the town should get a grant for low-income housing to focus on the history, character, and cultural development of the town, and provide, by controlling the funds to build the housing, we can build attractive housing that goes in character with our town. There's been 3 things over the years that have hurt our town because they were bonded. The highway department, the sewer thing, all these things. The library is an overburdened tax on everybody, and there was never a referendum really, because the vote was 890 to 600, and there's 5,200 registered voters here. The library is out of character with the town.
Thank you. State your name for the
Michael
record.
Beach. I'm gonna read a statement from my friend Ed Sanders, who couldn't be here tonight. So please don't shoot the messenger, okay? I'm Ed Sanders, investigative poet, musician, and historian, who has lived in Woodstock with his wife Miriam for 50 years. And during much of those 50 years, we have been active in environmental and land use issues. For instance, I chaired the committee that wrote the 1989 zoning law and have been very active in a number of local environmental matters over the decades. At this hearing of the Woodstock Town Board, I will comment on the HOTF zoning proposal. First, I will note that this massive zoning proposal was created in total secrecy, as if it were a CIA operation working on a coup. And in a way, it was a coup. This is Ed, okay? A coup against Woodstock. It should be rejected by all Woodstock property owners and taxpayers. It threatens Woodstock's water supplies, trees, open spaces, and won't build affordable housing. It's being proposed by a group of locals, some of whom don't even know the details of what they're proposing. So please, I'm skipping over here because I know time is important. So please, oh town board, turn down this massive zoning proposal that threatens Woodstock with massive overdevelopment, the poisoning of water supplies, and the influx of vast amounts of human waste on fragile Woodstock lands. And it will never supply housing that a worker at House or Cumberland Farms can afford. Woodstock, you have to bring the vision of Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal and Lyndon Johnson's Great Society and create affordable housing that intervenes in the marketplace and which remains affordable for decades and even for centuries.
Thank you,
and which
Michael.
those who work at Woodstock's businesses can afford to live in for now and for far future decades.
So now I'll go across the back. Gentleman or person in the white jacket, come on up. Your name for the record?
Ralph Mayer. Just very quick, I agree with what just was said. You know, like literally, if I wouldn't walk the dog every morning at the Como property, I would not know that this is happening. I found out 2 days ago. I think there is like probably a vast majority of people live in Woodstock who have no idea this is going on. I hope that this is really considered, you know, and that there's more time actually to send in comments, you know, and recommendations to really give enough time for people to really digest this proposal, you know. That's all.
Folks, that the meeting is going to be recessed tonight. We'll have another public hearing in November and another one yet in December. Next person with their hand up there by the door, come on up. And then person in the yellow sweatshirt. Yeah, okay.
John Wisdom. I'm sort of new to this issue. I've been preoccupied with other things during the last 2 years. I've been looking at the materials, and one of the things that I'm concerned about in the map that was produced is that there are certain color-coded densities for what, oh, I'm sorry. First thing I'm questioning is what they consider to be buildable. There are steep slopes, there are sites that have not been developed yet that need to have Ulster County approved section 16 for right size. And this map, I think is assuming that these are all okay. But the most important thing to me, at this point is that the dark brown color, which signifies up to 45 units for places where it would be advantageous for developers to come in, make contiguous units, build on it, that in those colors is 45 units. This morning I looked it up. Every year, every day that I go into Kingston, I have to drive down 375 and go past Maverick Knolls. Maverick Knolls does not fit character of Woodstock. It is not naturally protected by any environment. It's been exposed like that since it was built. And if we do not have controls in the proposed law to make sure that that does not happen, anybody who develops a property could potentially give us more of those to look at. So I would be concerned to make sure that that loophole was covered. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Or sweater? Name for the record?
Okay, my name is Emma. My last name is Lee, Leigh. I was born here in 1987. I was one of the last babies born in Catskill Hospital and came home to my home address in Woodstock. I was raised by a single mother. We were never able to afford to buy property here, but I always imagined that as I grew and I got my education, I would be able to buy a home and raise my family here because I feel deeply connected to this land. I love the community. I also have lived other places when I was in school, and also more recently, I lived in Rochester, New York, and I have a beautiful community there. But I don't feel the way that I feel here anywhere else. Nowhere else do I feel the connection that I feel with this land. And I have spoken to so many people that I've grown up with that feel the exact same way, and they have all said, I kind of hate it because it feels so inaccessible to live here right now. And I am so against this idea that affordable housing should be urban and in town and nowhere else, because this is why I'm here, is to live with this land.
Yeah.
This is what makes my spirit alive. Like, this makes me, I'm more alive when I'm here than when I'm anywhere else. And for that reason, I would like to say a couple of things. One, I love that Woodstock still has the spirit we always have had, where we're like, this is our town and we don't want it to change. It has changed. I remember the CVS boycott. We still got CVS. We don't have any stoplights. So that being said, I know a lot of the people I grew up with right now have either been displaced, they've had to move out of the area, they dream of coming back. I also know larger number that I've ever known of them are homeless. So we need affordable housing. And I don't know if that's going to look like, I think the accessory dwelling unit idea is great because I lived in a cabin on Ohio Mountain for $5.50 a month 9 years ago, and that was a dream. And if we can get back to a point where something like that is possible, amazing, amazing. I think that you spoke very well about the short-term rentals. I don't know why we are letting people who don't live here make money off of our town.
Here, here.
Occupied, so in the zoning, where they speak to
Your
this.
2 minutes are up.
Okay, can I just wrap this up?
5 seconds, go ahead,
Thank
hurry
you.
up.
Instead of primary dwellings having an ADU that can be used for affordable, it should be owner occupied.
Thank you.
Not the outside.
I'd like to talk to you about the STRs.
Okay. sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
And there's one stoplight in town. Think about it, we'll talk when you call me.
Where?
Yeah.
That's Stewart.
Hello, everybody.
Well, it's Woodstock.
Hello, Hera. All right. I'm a firefighter in Company 2, which is out on the Bearsville-Wittenberg Road. We get somewhere between 5 and 12 calls a day for the medical community. They are not all for old people. This last Saturday, we were slammed. Everybody thought it was wonderful. even though it was just drizzly, it wasn't bad rain, everybody climbed their ladders and fell off. What are we gonna do with all these idiots who come up here? Firefighters are overworked. We now have a proposal to buy and, well, to support and financially hire another full-time ETF. Because we cannot handle, as volunteers, and I'm a volunteer, we cannot handle the load on the fire department. Now, thank God people are a little better with the fires, but the medicals are unbelievable. All right, after that, the water in the aquifer is currently threatened by the toxicity of 10 Dixon Avenue, which was purchased by the library board. They have not started constructing the structural aspects of an elevator and the other things they're going to have to do and disturb the soil. The toxicity of that soil is going to run into our aquifer. There is a pump right down 10 Dixon, less than a quarter of a mile. It's going to get lead, arsenic, and trichloroethylene, which is the chemical used in your dry cleaning. It causes nerve damage. I know a man who's had it. It's disastrous. They used to throw it on the grass. For years, they were there 15 years doing this. This is the most toxic building, and I'm pleading with you right now, support the library to sell that building. It's good for nothing but storage. Project 10 Church Road is already leaching into the town aquifer.
Tara?
Stop this now.
Thank you.
Stop this now.
Thank you, Hannah. Next. Michael?
Where do I stand?
That's fine right there.
Okay.
Just state your name for the.
My name is Michael Dewan, resident of Bearsville for 36 years. I'm here to enthusiastically urge the town board to accept the recommendations of the HOTF, pass the zoning and subdivision ordinance as revised into law. The challenge before you, actually to all of us, is to set aside misinformation and honestly address our community's urgent need, year-round housing for year-round Woodstockers now. Here's some of the, I'm going to skip through a bunch of things. Here's some of the best aspects of this task force's recommendations. Conservation subdivision, which is brand new to Woodstock. Net buildable acreage, also brand new. Having ADUs be only one of many options for affordable housing. Greater clarity for the planning board so they know what they're actually working with in terms of regulation. Just look at how this revised law would affect Woodstock National Project, okay? They must set aside environmentally sensitive areas such as streams and wetlands, their buffers, and all steep slopes in order to figure out net buildable acreage. In addition, as a conservation subdivision, they must put 50% of the contiguous acreage into permanent conservation. Today's law has no such provision. And they must identify at least 10% of their homes as affordable, integrated into the project, both in style and location, not ghettoized. Embedded in these revisions are the three things that we all agree we need. High quality, affordable housing for all year-round Woodstockers. Permanent protection of our beloved environment and maintaining our rural, small town character. Please, all five of you, seize this moment and pass this into law.
Thank you, Michael.
Hi, my name is Mary Cho Hardenberg. I was asked to read this letter for Natalie Sear. It reads, Dear Town Board members, regarding tonight's public hearing, I would like to voice my concerns. Number one, I would like to know how many public hearings will take place regarding these proposed zone changes. Number two, When will the public see all the professional studies pertaining to the infrastructure and the need for multifamily structures? Number 3, the map of the proposed multifamily designations shows almost every area of the entire town as eligible for this type of building. Did the property owners of all these parcels agree to have these potential dwellings considered for their private property? Number 4, would any town board member's property be directly affected? The multifamily dwellings proposed would they be in your backyard or next door? Number 5, would these proposed building clusters affect your quality of life? And number 6, if affordable housing has state or federal funding, would it be eligible to people across all of New York or the United States and not be exclusive to residents of Woodstock? Thank you. Natalie Sear.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Sir?
Yes, my name is David Stein. I'm a relatively new resident, but I am also a regional planner by training. And I'd like to comment that one of the things that is very difficult about dealing with the town zoning ordinance is the fact that it does not relate to the wider region around it. I think there needs to be efforts at the county level and perhaps even wider to look at this issue of who's moving into the area, why, and how to accommodate them. So it is all done piecemeal and allowing developers to pick us off one by one.
Anyone else in the room that hasn't spoken? Just state your name for the record.
My name is Gail Albert. I've lived here since 98. I wasn't planning to speak. And I certainly don't understand at this point all of the details of the provision. But part of what I've been struck by listening to people is that anyone who owns property has the right to sell it. And then you sell it to a developer. It isn't that this is a plan intended to encourage developers. The developers are here. They are waiting for us. They're waiting for people to sell their land to them so that they can build whatever they wish to build. The attempt, as far as I understand it, of the new zoning code is to restrict further what developers can actually build. It also, I agree, and I'm saying I don't get all of it, okay? But my impression so far has been that there's no increase allowed in the density of housing. If anything, there's a vast decrease, as we just said earlier, in terms of the amount of land that has to be protected and buffer zones and all of that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Go ahead.
and I guess that's basically, and the affordable housing is an issue we need to address. And the efforts have been made to talk about clustering rather than having the kind of suburban development from which I fled New Jersey. And none of us want. And that the Woodstock, the Maverick Knolls is an example of, in many ways, very unexisting.
Thank you. Is there anyone outside back that would like to speak? Come on in. In the meantime, Melanie, is there anyone online that would like to speak?
I just put it out there, no one has.
Okay, so just keep me posted. Anyone else in the room that has not spoken that would like to speak? No, you spoke already, Pat. I see your name right here.
One quick thing.
Quick. So everybody's gonna want one quick thing.
I'm hoping, town of Esopus, I don't know if you've heard that they've had problems with their rezoning, and I was just wondering if you might look into that.
I will.
Who had problems?
Esopus.
Oh, okay.
Anyone? Melanie? You didn't speak? Okay, And just tell Nula, no, miss, you come on up, and then Nula can go after.
I think someone online has a hand up.
Yeah, we saw, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Who is gonna speak here in the audience? Okay, Nula, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Hi, everybody. First, thanks very much to the task force for their hard work on proposals that will address the housing crisis in town by updating antiquated zoning laws. Safe, stable, affordable housing was first recognized as a human right in the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Meanwhile, here in Woodstock, too many Woodstockers were forced out of their town due to lack of affordable housing. More and more are struggling to find secure, affordable housing, and more are on the cusp of losing their homes. There are just no affordable rentals, and there's just no affordable housing anymore. The things that interest me, any zoning change without proper enforcement and without policy changes will not be very effective. Therefore, I am interested in the following topics being shared publicly in the future and remaining open for discussion. Policy recommendations that include strict protections for the environment and animal life. Recommendations for investment necessary to enforce affordable housing. Training to include yearly zoning audits geared to ensure affordable housing is in fact being used for affordable housing. Incentives to encourage homeowners to create ADUs, participate in home share, and this can include tax incentives. Special legislation to increase real estate fees or other fees and dedicate that toward affordable housing. Policies that ensure fair housing practices and how we might be able to recover STRs upon a sale. Thank you very much.
Anyone else there, Melanie? Anyone from outside who wants to speak, or we all? Okay, I'm gonna go around again in this room and cut it down to a minute, so I know you have your hand up.
So I haven't read all 300 and however many pages yet, but I did review some of the pertinent information. So under C1, sorry, I don't have all of it in front of me in my notes, but I saw that there is that it states like non-discrimination policy, but I didn't see people with disabilities included, and people on fixed income, in particular SSI, which is a torture program that basically is out to murder systemically impoverished disabled people. So there's absolutely no possible way to afford anywhere to live or an existence even on SSI, and you're also told you can't afford, well, you're not really told, you just, you know, showed and preyed upon that you can't afford an existence and that you're not allowed to make any money. I don't know how anyone can tell someone that they're not allowed to make any money in a world that revolves around money when you're not even afforded existence. So it's completely against the law and criminal. And in particular, young disabled people who are not born into a silver spoon family are affected this way. Okay, so I was wondering about incentives to have 2 LTR, it says 2 to 3 LTR affordable ADUs. Like if you could create more incentives to, so that like if some, like for example, my dad who's now deceased, he would probably have been happy to have to keep affordable housing on recovery, and that would and why even expire it after 50 years? I know it said a minimum of 50 years, which at least that, you know, but like so like some people I know in this town would be happy to host as many affordable housing units as they could on their property.
All right, so I'm gonna cut you up there, but if you want to give us that in writing,
Okay.
we'd be happy to continue to answer those. And also, so is there anybody else that wants to speak a second time?
I just have first quick question.
Okay.
CC Carmichael.
My question is, and I appreciate this forum and the board is listening to every side, because this is what democracy looks like, so thank you. But ultimately, is the decision up to the board? So you can have a couple more of these open hearings where we're all speaking up and everybody's been passionate on both sides. Then you've got to get the zoning board involved.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's just the decision
town
of the
board.
board and the zoning board.
No, just the town board.
I mean, the town board.
Yes.
Just the town. board.
5 town board members.
5, okay, there's 5 of you, so.
3 out of 5.
Okay,
So, no, I'm just curious, it's not really common, it's a question of how
Yeah.
this works, and that to me is a little frightening, that the future of our, and you know, you guys are outstanding individuals, but
Thank you.
that our future is in the hands of 5 people.
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
1 minute.
One quick comment. I hope we can invest in Zoom at the community center
Yeah.
so that we can all be present for the next one.
We're looking into it. Oh, 1 minute.
Michael Plasky again, and one more thought that I meant to include when I first spoke. I drive around and on occasion I see in town or on the outskirts of town what appears to be an abandoned house that may be owned by a bank somewhere. Have there been steps taken to look into whether, with the help of organizations like Habitat for Humanity, these houses can be claimed, renovated, and used for housing that people of moderate income might be able to?
Okay, thank you. So, is Maria-Elena outside?
We have a hand up back there.
Well, hold on, we don't have a meeting. We don't have a quorum.
Is Maria-Elena outside?
You know, this,
We don't have a forum.
I'm recessing the meeting to the call of the chair. Ken, I'm really sorry, we don't have a legal meeting. No, we need 3 bodies in this room. I'm sorry,
I got
folks.
3 bodies in my truck, they get them?
Swearing in as board members. Ken, you get to go first at the next meeting. So I'm recessing the call, move to adjourn, we can do it with less than 2.
Second.
So, all in favor? Aye. Folks, thank you for a great meeting. Before, you can start to spread the word.